minutes. If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of the HHH Racing Podcast, Picks and Ponies, episode 337, with my wonderful co-host and good friend, Pete Viscos. We're going to be talking about the big card at Aqueduct this Saturday, the late pick 5, 3 stakes, including the Kentucky Oaks Prep, the Busher Stakes, and the Kentucky Derby Prep, the Gotham with a huge field, plus one other stake race as well. Pete, it's a big card. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you? Yeah, it's a pretty good one.
Very good. Let's just jump right into it. We're going to be talking about the pick 5. We're going to go over our opinions of the top 3. Thank you very much for joining us. Please make sure you follow me or follow the podcast right there at H Kravitz on X. Hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen and smash that like button as well. And make sure you also hit the notification bell on the top right-hand corner of your YouTube page. Pete, let's just get right into it. Aqueduct, pick 5. Let me take off the banner here. Pick 5 on Saturday. Let's rock and roll. It starts at approximately 3:31 Eastern in race 6. It's a very difficult allowance race. 7 furlongs. Of course, they are still on the dirt, but they're going to be on the turf next month in New York. It's a 12-horse field as we are filming this on Thursday early evening. The morning line favorite is the number 9, Radio Red, a New York bred for Danny Gargan and Dylan Davis. Let's bring up our top picks right now, coming up on the bottom of the screen. And there they are right now. I'm going 298. Pete, you are going to go with the favorite, Radio Red. Why don't you talk about this horse a little bit?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm seeing the odds for the first time as I just refreshed on my end and seeing them there. So it's always a shock when you're seeing what your picks look like. But this one, a couple things. 4 for 7. I should say 4 for 7 in the money at Aqueduct. So it's pretty good at Aqueduct. 4 for 4 in the money at 7 furlongs. One thing I like, the horse seems to be improving. Had 2 races back, had sort of a co-lifetime buyer top. Last time, lifetime buyer top, a top by time form, which actually liked the race even a little bit more. And I like the fact it seemed to be improving going into the end of last season. So if you look on the screen there, it was starting to incrementally get better and then came back in 24, first race at 4, and ran probably the best race of his life. So you like that progression. You like when they come back in the new year. He gets Dylan Davis back again. With him, he's got 4 races, 3 wins, a second. So he knows the horse well. It's his second time in open company, but the first one was the Gotham, which was a train wreck, but it was probably supposed to be. So he just seems pretty logical to me.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, he's 7 for 11 in the money. I think it cost $10,000, Pete, and he's made over
It's
190.
crazy.
That's pretty damn good.
It's nice.
Deal there, 19 times your investment. Real nice. New York bred. He's very honest. He can absolutely win. I've got him second. Should sit a nice trip. He has been on the inside getting cozy trips. Now he's a little bit on the outside. People might think that's a positive or negative. That's up to them. Pete, I got to be honest. I thought this race was really difficult. And I thought there was quite a bit early speed. Let's go ahead and show the time from US Pace Figs. Of course, it never always works out the way that you think it will. But there's the pace. And you see in the upper right-hand corner, of course, that red sign indicating a fast pace. And also it says fast pace. Hello. 5, 6, 7, 9, all sort of up close. I thought it might set up for a closer. Of course, we'll see. I went with the 2, Pete. I got to say this is a fuzzy pick. I don't have a lot of confidence, but when I looked at this race, I thought the 2 was the best closer at 12-1. Now, I don't know what happened last time. I watched the replay. We're not going to show it here, Pete. He was sort of climbing, and he just didn't look comfortable on the inside. The weird thing, he's been on the inside before, so I don't really know what happened. I'm just sort of tossing that out as just not his day. But really, if you look at him carefully, he's got numbers that absolutely fit with time forms there in the mid 100s, and that could absolutely win this race. He should be taken back. I do like the jock switch to Franco, although Coca last time, who's actually had a decent meet. He's a jock from Turkey who's been in to ride this winter at Aqueduct. Has done just fine, but look, Franco's one of the best riders there. I don't think 7 furlongs is a problem, and I get a price. So I will admit I'm not sure what to expect from this horse, Pete, but I just wanted to go with the price in this race. I'm going to go with the closer, Kunshin Bridge at 12 to 1 morning line. Why don't you go ahead and quickly talk about either Vespucci and or factually correct you have second and third, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I'll hit the four Vespucci real quick so you could see on debut, excuse me, 81 buyer, 98 time form, but it was a nice debut. Beat three next out winners, which is good. But again, it's weird when that happens. However many months ago that is, 8 months ago now. So you're like, well, how do I gauge? Yes, that was a pretty good debut 8 months ago. Who the heck knows where that's going to lead now? The couple things I had were Patrick Reynolds, 2 for 24, second time starters, not the best thing in the world. He did have a nice work four back. He picks up an apprentice, so he's carrying low weight. And, in a field like this, who knows? I think it's a pretty even field. So any little advantage, I'll take. The one thing that was funny, Patrick Reynolds with Ruiz on the jock, 29% wins, 79% in the money together. So you can see the 29
Wow.
on the screen, but 79 in the money. I forget what the sample size was, but at least they have some familiarity. They've had some success together. And this is one that does have a decent late pace figure as well. So should be in the same vein as
Yeah.
your horse, maybe sitting off if we can get a fast pace. Factually correct. You mentioned that one. This was more of a, if the horse does get a clear lead, I could see him holding on and either even potentially winning or at least being a part of the trifecta or even in second, just from a pace advantage. But it all depends on if anybody goes with him or not, which again, we look at the time form. He has a little bit of a clear lead, but it does say fast pace, meaning he's going to be pressed most likely.
Yeah. The one thing about Vespucci, and I watched the replay, I was actually pretty impressed by it.
Me
I
too.
will say when trainers decide to bring a horse back on these big days, to me, that's a big positive. The purses are always jacked up just a little bit. I mean,
Agree.
there's plenty of N1Xs that he could have run in, right? And he chose Gotham Day. I always find that a bit interesting, Pete, and I always upgrade horses in
I
that
agree.
situation, in my opinion. Just very quickly on the 8 and 9, then we'll move on. Look, I know this horse is from out of town, but I do like turnbacks, Pete, the number 8, Aztec. I do like turnbacks. Coincidentally, he has not been running in Arizona or New Mexico. You think with that name, Aztec, maybe he would, but he's a Midwestern horse, Pete. Anyway, I do like turnbacks. I like the outside post. I like the trainer switch to Bruce Levine. Carmouche takes over. I don't know. Again, 20 to 1 morning line to me seems absolutely crazy. I know he doesn't have New York form, but there aren't really any killers in here, and
I
he's
had I
turning
had this
back.
horse as a B, and I was surprised.
Yeah,
Just this, literally when you scrolled to it, I saw the 20 to 1, and I'm like, I could see the high odds just based on where he's coming from, but he's in pretty good form, man. I mean,
he
that's
is.
that's
I mean,
pretty
he's
good
got to
form
step
there.
up in class probably, but I don't know. He's been working. I like the fact I think he's been working in New York. Yeah, he's been in New York consistently now for a while, since at least for a month here. I don't know. I just, it feels the kind of race, Speed, and we'll go ahead and move on. We already talked about Radio Red. It just feels like a race where I personally want to take a price. And in the Big
Yeah,
Five, I'm absolutely spreading here. I don't have a confidence in anyone really necessarily. So this is a
Levine, by the
complete.
way, on Aztec, he's only 2 for 45 first time after a trainer switch. That was the
mm,
one negative I saw, but again, you're getting 20 to 1, so that
Yeah.
that definitely outweighs any sort of negativity. But again, I
Yeah.
agree, spread race to me.
Let's go on to the next race, B, and this is a prep for the Kentucky Oaks. And the Kentucky Oaks is always a really fun race, and I feel like it gets a little bit short shrift. Like, duh, we know why, because the Derby. But this year we've talked about it, Pete, on this show many times, and with Paul Halloran, that the 3-year-old girls have just not really stepped up their game yet this year. Just FYI is coming back, however, and the second place finisher, and the name escapes me, is also coming back this weekend from the Breeders' Cup Juvenile filly. So anyway, I think we're going to see some upgrade in the juvenile filly, or not the juvenile, in the 3-year-old fillies this year. But let's go ahead and talk about this race, which is race 7. It's the Busher. It's a 50 points to the winner for the Kentucky Oaks. Of course, it's for 3-year-old fillies. Pretty small field, of 7. They're going a 1-turn mile, just like the Gotham. Big morning line favorite here. There it is. Jody's Pride. Jody's Pride is the one that finished second to Just FYI in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies. Let's take a look at our picks right now. We're not messing around. Oh, look, Pete. Great
Yeah,
minds think
there
alike.
we
Not
go.
overly creative, but hey, it just feels like it's that kind of race. We're both going 6-1. Jody's Pride for Abreu and Lascano. Off the layoff, you never know, Pete, what's going to happen. You would think they're going to improve. Jody's Pride just looks like the class of this field.
Yeah, you're right about off the layoff is always the tough thing. Are they going to be fully cranked? Are they going to give their best run? You do. We've seen horses that have come back and not been as sharp. So you figure if you're going to bet against a 4-5 morning line favorite, this is probably the race to do it. But I know I really like this horse. I think you like this horse in the
Yes.
juvenile fillies as
This was
well.
actually
Both of us did.
Navernier's top pick. I got to throw a shout out to
Oh,
him
nice.
at 18-1, and she ran huge that day.
Yeah, I had her. I had her underneath as well. So I really just like this horse. Switches to Lescano, who's been running really well here at Aqueduct. Just from a figure standpoint, at least it was last year. The buyers have gone up each race. The time form peaked on the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies, which you like to see. She's tactical, so it's not like she's going to be coming from way back and have too much to do and sort of, if she's not in peak condition, won't be able to get there. She should be able to sit off whatever the speed winds up being, which I'm a little unclear. There's a few horses that like the top here. We'll get to that, I'm sure, when we look at the time form, but I feel like she's tactical enough where Lescano can get her right in a good position. Yeah, you could see right there. She should be sitting. That's even a little closer than I thought. I thought maybe sitting behind if, say, the 1 and the 7 go, but I feel like she's just going to be in a perfect spot. I don't know if you have anything else on her.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add, Pete. I will say it's going to be interesting to see what Just FYI does, because the juvenile fillies, Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies, didn't really come back a fast race. I
No.
mean, Jody's Pride got it, a 79 buyer and almost won the damn thing. So normally I would say she has to improve, and we'll talk about Just FYI. People can watch that on episode 336 show that we filmed, of course, with our good friend Paul, and we had what a great show that was with Junior Alvarado and Matt Bernier. And please check that out, because that was an awesome show. We had a lot of fun with some big time celebs there. But anyway, and we talked about Just FYI. But this race is not as tough as the Just FYI race in terms of its competition. I don't think Jody's Pride really has to be on her A game at all to win this race. I do think there is quite a bit of speed. You see regulatory risk from the inside with Franco and Chad, you would think would go. There's some other speed in this race. That's why I assume we both have Jin in second, who she's no killer, but she does have the ability to rate a little bit in behind and close. It's Cox, McCarthy, Calumet Farms. If Jody's Pride's not ready, this one seems to be the logical other choice, at least in my opinion and your opinion, apparently.
Yeah, I was on the fence between the 1 and the 2. The thing I thought you could, if you were trying to get away from the top 2 choices here and you just wanted to do, say, a Jody's Pride over a longer shot and maybe toss the 2. The 2 best races that Jin has had, I mean, just from a buyer standpoint or just even from an impressive, 2 of them were they're off track, which maybe she seems to like. So if you're trying to get away from her, again, that's sort of picking nits, though. It's not a huge thing. It's not like she hasn't won. She won her second race. She broke her maiden on a fast track, but that was about all I can come up with. I think she didn't beat much last time out. It turned out to be,
No.
but again, I don't know if there's a lot here either. So if she just gets a good trip, but again, I don't think the 1 is out of question. I mean, Chad, 3-year-old non-graded stakes dirt routes, 37% wins, 74% in the money. Had a nice recent work. The last couple of works were okay, but I like the most recent one. Got on the lead in the last one, which I think there's other speed here, but did get on the lead, so should be able to show some pace from the rail. Lost 2 back to Tarifa, that obviously has been flattered. She came back excellent. Whatever that was, 2 weeks ago, maybe. So,
Yes.
Isn't the theme though of what we've seen lately from the Kentucky Oaks horses is the top ones don't necessarily stand out by a ton in terms of say figures. So all these races seem a little closer than sometimes the odds make them out to be. So if you're looking for a price, that's probably the reason why you might be okay landing on a price horse and taking down a lower horse, a lower
She's got
price
she's
horse.
got she's got West Sunset in her, that she lost to also. So she's lost some good ones. She's just not very
Yeah.
fast. I mean, so
No.
I
Yeah.
thought there was quite a bit of speed in this race. It just feels like if Jody's Pride is ready, she wins. But I
That's the
wouldn't be
hope.
surprised. I'm going to go thin, but I'm going to be a little nervous to be honest because if it's not Jody's Pride, I don't have a ton of confidence in Jin Jin's like the second best horse either.
No.
So,
No.
but you got to take a stand somewhere, and that's where we're going to plant our flag
Agree.
in the Busher. Let's go ahead on to the next race. This is the Stymie, Pete. It's 1 mile for the older horses. Nice race here. $150,000 ungraded stake, field of 8. The morning line favorite is the number 6 Castle Chaos, who was cross-entered in Florida, but he is going here to this New York race for Falcone and Dylan Davis. He ran big last time at Gulfstream. Let's see who we're going with. You see on the screen, I'm going to go 7-6-8. I'm going to go a little bit of a fuzzy here, and Pete is going to go 6-1-8. He is going with the chalk Castle Chaos. Of course, Pete didn't know he was the chalk, as we mentioned a few times now. So don't no shade throwing at Pete for being a chalk eating weasel so far. What do you like about Castle Chaos, Pete?
Yeah, this is why I usually don't like sending my picks over for the show until I see the odds in case I want to switch something up. But this is where you land. It's funny. I had this horse. I can't remember. I might have had at least had him in my top three in both races because we did the Gulfstream race as well. So I just kind of like
Yes.
this horse. Actually liked a little bit better at Gulfstream, I think. But I think the big thing is this horse doesn't really get a lot of respect, but runs better every single time. So I guess that's the weird thing about taking him at 2-1 is you're used to getting this horse at double digit odds and even pretty high double digits, but he always seems to outrun his odds. So maybe here he just runs to his odds. Two back, he loses the Cigar, which has come back obviously strong. We have the winner of the Saudi Cup and Senor Buscador. Hoist the Gold, we know, is a really good horse, just maybe not what he's tried to do lately, stretching out a little further than he probably likes. But we know that's high quality. He's got Castle Chaos here, first in graded stakes or second in graded stakes last time with a little bit softer. Ran against Tumbarumba, who I really like and is going to be favored at Gulfstream. I think is probably the morning line favorite in his race, and popped a lifetime buyer top there. Seems to be coming off the pace. We didn't look at the pace here. I can't remember
Let's
if
take
it
a look
was.
at it.
I didn't look to remember if it was fast. I thought it was decent.
Moderate.
Oh, the moderate. Okay, so it's not a ton, but I didn't love the pace horses, so I feel like I can get a horse coming from off, and if as long as Castle Chaos isn't too far back, has shown some tactical ability in some of these races, I think he can be in a pretty good position.
Yeah, I think you could certainly make the argument he's the horse to beat here. I do have him second. He's logical. There's just two things I didn't like, Pete. He's not exactly a win machine, number
Nope.
one. Number two, we're used to getting big odds on him, and now he's going to be 8-5. So,
Yeah.
look, he can absolutely win. I know Charlie Freeman from Bet and Boozin took a really tough beat. He loved this horse last time at Gulfstream. It was a great call by him, and Tumbarumba, who actually was my top choice in that race, was able to outlast him to the finish. So Castle Cats, I have nothing negative to say other than his price is going to be very low. And if the time form US is correct, it might not favor closers.
Yeah.
Now, in saying that, of course, I'm going with the closer. So here's my situation with the quality check. I want to say this. This is a bit of a reach. Okay, so no hate email. But again, I like turnbacks. I think there is enough speed in this race. I think there's more speed on paper, Pete, than it looks because the 2 is going to go. I think the Connect's guy, the 1's got to go. And last time, quality check clearly didn't handle that track and faced Law Professor. Now, we do need to talk about the weather. I know you much of the weather. It's supposed to rain Saturday. Who the F knows what's going to happen? And people might say, well, Howard, why are you taking a horse who didn't like the slop last time and now he might get slop again? Well, I don't think slop is necessarily a problem, Pete, because 3 back, he handled it fantastically. And you go back to October 21st, he ran okay there too. So I don't know what the story was last time. He just didn't run his race. I don't mind the switch to Vasquez, who is coming up to ride on this card. David Jacobson is always sneaky, Pete. And it seems like when I don't pick this guy, he comes up with some kind of mystery out of nowhere race because it's David Jacobson, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't think he's incapable of winning this race at a big price. So I'm gonna Quality Chick is definitely something I'm using underneath. I'm gonna use him a little bit on top. I'm also gonna use the 8 Petulante. Now this horse was entered last week, Pete, and scratched. And Dutro said he's had some foot issues when he took him over. So this horse is a little bit ouchy, but if he's ready, Pete, this is a very speedy horse, and he's got the outside post. He does have to deal with a long layoff, though. This is the horse. This is the total mystery of this race. I would never take a price too low because you're not sure where you're going to get. But the fact that he scratched out of last week, which was an allowance race, by the way, into a stake spot, I mean, you got to think he's ready. Otherwise, why wouldn't Dutro run him last week?
Yeah, this was a tough one. I mean, you see, he's 3 for 3 since he started going a mile, and you like that, and the progression was there. And again, paired up lifetime buyer tops, but that was 8 months ago. So who knows if that form is still holding? So that's always tough. But I agree with you. Was in that grade 3, beat some nice horses. I like Nimitz Clash trademark is pretty good as well. So I actually beat some good horses. Looks like the class of the field. If it wasn't for the layoff, I assume this horse would be favored. If this horse had even one more recent run and was as good as he was last year, I think he'd probably be favored. One funny stat: Dutro only 1 for 17 first time after the trainer switch on dirt specifically. So that was one thing where I was like, that and the layoff, maybe you can try and beat him. I thought he would be the favorite. So actually, I was the way I looked at the odds going in was a little bit off, obviously, but yeah, there's not a bunch of knocks on this horse, maybe aside from the layoff. And like you said, if there are some foot issues, you never know if they're right when they're supposed to be.
I sort of feel about Castle Chaos the way I felt about Jody's Pride. Like they're usually bigger price horses. Now they're going to be favorites, and I just don't know if I want to take them on top. I just want to show Coastal Mission. This is a horse you remember, Pete. We talked about this horse on Cigar Mile Day because how cool it was. He's a West Virginia bred. He actually I mean he finished 5th by 10, but that was a brutally fast pace. In the Cigar Mile, this is much easier. If this one is ready, I know I don't have him in the top 3. Coastal Mission would not surprise me at all. And again, that would be pretty cool if he wins. I don't know if you considered him or not.
I had
Then
him
we'll
as
move
an
on.
A. He was my 4th choice. So I had 4 sort of A's. So I was trying to decide which one to put in the top 3. And honestly, I probably the same reason for you. Maybe it was just you don't always trust the horse that was winning at, say, a smaller
Yeah,
track. That was the only knock, though. I think there was the Cigars, like we said, has come back strong. The one that was off Lasix too, but again, you never know if it was the Lasix or it was just the fact that it's a grade 2 against a good field and the step up in competition. So it's hard to gauge what the problem was. But again, we're off Lasix. Who knows?
yeah.
This one is on my. I'm pretty sure is on my pick 5 ticket when we get to it, though. I didn't want to lose to this horse.
Again, similar to race 6, Pete, I've got spread written down, tough race. I just don't think Castle Chaos has to win. I could be very wrong on Saturday, but I think it's interesting to see
Yeah.
what happens. And I'm sort of wondering why he came here instead of Florida because there's more of a little more of a I don't know cachet, a little more prestige if you went on Fountain of Youth Day, at least in my opinion. No disrespect to New York, than the Gotham Day, but maybe that's just me. Let's go on to the next race, Pete. The next race is the Tom Fool. Nice race for the sprinters. 6 furlongs, 175,000. Field of 8. Morning line favorite is the number 5, a New York bred Rotney for Maker and Lascano, a very speedy horse. Let's take a look and see who we have here in race 9. We are quite different. I'm going 6-2-8 and you were going 5-3-8. So Pete, of course, the chalk eating. No, Pete actually doesn't mind taking prices. Just he didn't know what the morning lines were.
I
I'll let
mean,
you say.
I should have
You are
made
the
the
no chalky with Rodney.
I should have made the morning lines apparently at the rate that I'm going here. So yeah, I do not enjoy this ticket so far that we're putting together, but maybe one of the other horses would come up to win. But if you look at, I mean, this horse makes sense as the favorite. You see 4 wins at Aqueduct, 7 out of 9 in the money, 5 wins at the distance, and 8 out of 10 in the money. Top from a time form standpoint. I think at least it hadn't fully updated on my. I didn't have access to time form this time, but I think is the top time form early pace figure. There's other speed inside though. I think the other speed, I don't know if you want to go to it real quick. There's speed out. See, I thought there was going to be speed inside more, but
Mhm.
I thought that Liscano could make a choice in either gun and pass the 2 and the 3 on the inside, or if the 8 goes, let the 8 go and then just sit off, because this horse has the ability to maybe make up some ground. Doesn't do his best running, but can be similar to the last race where it could sit in second, sit off a decent
Yeah.
pace, and then close.
By the way, I just want to. You talked about the inside horses. The blue, sorry, the blue. The 2 has been involved in blue coated figs,
They're
Pete. So I
blue,
think
yeah.
even though there are a lot of low numbers early in the fractions, or early in the charts, the paces have been slower. But Super Chow's not rating. I mean, with Matty Oliver is going. I feel very confident about that. So I know the 3 was behind the 5 and the 8 in the time form. The 8 is Durante, who's also a fast horse. I just have a hard time believing that Super Chow is not sending very hard from the inside, Pete.
No, I agree with that. And then just to finish off on Rockney, Maker's been pretty hot at this meet as well. And I do like that if you look, I always like this. I probably say this a bunch on here when you get horses who sort of were working well going into their last race, they run well, and then they come out and their next few works are also good. It just means they're sort of holding that form. So I like when that happens. There are just a bunch of reasons why I like this horse, and that's probably why he's 9-5.
Yep, there's some nice bullets on the train track. I will say, and Pete, sometimes I get caught up in this. You see bullets. Look, the February 10th was 10 works. The February 19th was 6 works, right? So let's not get,
Yeah, I don't
too
look at the bullet.
crazy.
I don't look at the bullet as much as I look at the time and
Sure.
because again, sometimes you run a fast one, but you could still be 20th, and oh, the
Yes.
track just must have been blazing that day, or the opposite, like you said, you could run a bullet. Yeah, if you run a bullet out of 6 and it's 102, it's not exactly fast.
Right.
So you have to look. You can't just look for the little bullet, which I do think some people do though.
Yeah, sometimes I don't look carefully enough. I will say also from Matt Cutera and other people I've talked to, New York, the track's been pretty slow. I mean, the main track, the times have been slow. The train track has been slower. Nothing wrong with the tracks. It's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Pete, here's the deal with this race. And I'm gonna put us both on screen real quick, and then I'm gonna go back to the. I thought there was a lot of speed in here, and we've had this conversation a zillion times. Sometimes it develops, sometimes it doesn't. With Super Chow, Rodney, and Durante, I mean, there's got to be at least an honest pace. I'm not saying it's going to be blazing. I'm not saying it's going to fall apart, but it sure as heck should be honest, right? Unless maybe Katie Davis sends with the 2 from the inside, who knows? And my thinking is here: I want a closer, and I really only found one good closer. And even though he's not really a grade stakes type, I think he's in really good form. This is one of my favorite plays of the day at Aqueduct, and for me, selfishly, I hope it works out. And that's the number 6, 24 Mamba, who, if you're a fan of Kobe, God rest his soul, you got to be a fan of this horse. That's not why I like the horse, although I'm obviously a huge fan of Kobe Bryant. Is he a little bit slower? I don't know, Pete. I mean, not really. When you look at his low 90s in his last 2, 118, 113 time for him. Dylan Davis knows the horse well. Charlie Baker's got this horse is going as good as possible. I like the fact that he's been off like over a month to recover from these big efforts. He's been working steadily. There's like 5 or 6 things I like about this horse. He's 8-1 morning line. Now, he's got to step up in a grade stakes company, but like again, who are the killers in this field? Super Chow, who to me like needs the lead. Rodney, who's a nice horse, but I mean, to me, 24 Mama is just as good by the numbers, at least, Pete. I really like 24 Mama in this spot. I think there's plenty of speed. I think Dylan's going to be mid-pack, make a big run late. Maybe the 6 furlongs is a little bit short. I suppose that could be a small concern. This is one of my plays of the day, 24 Mamba. Quick thoughts on this horse, then we'll move on, Pete.
This was my next horse. So I had 3 A's and 1 B in this race. And this was my 1 B for basically everything you said. I thought there would be some speed. Losing Lasix, but is actually Charlton Baker, 3 for 9 wins, 8 for 9 in the money, switching off of Lasix. There's some trainers who really struggle with that. Not a huge sample size, but at least he can do it. I just thought he needed to move forward. My biggest concern was, and if you look at the distance, 6 races,
Yep.
0 wins, 5 seconds. So that's why I
No
sort
doubt.
of had him on the B level. Like, hey, if we get this horse at a price, though, if nothing else, he could back up the exacta or the try, even if he can't get the win. And I thought you maybe would even get a little better price than we're getting, but
Mm.
I agree with you. So I have no disagreement on anything. I don't know if he would have been my top choice just for some of those reasons, but I can't argue with it at the price.
Well, and the other thing is, I know he's, he hasn't won the distance, but 5 seconds is still means he can run
Oh
well
yeah,
within
it's
the
very
distance.
just funny though. Some horses are
No
secondy,
doubt.
but at least he won his last two, so he's not at least it's not a choice of getting to the wire. It's just maybe like you said, maybe he needs a little more distance to get to the
No
wire, and
doubt.
that could be
He's also in
his
his best
downfall.
form, so like every number is going to be low before he got into his good form, right?
Yeah, agree,
In terms of the
agree.
win percentage. So I don't know. I 24 Mamba. I'll be thinking about Kobe in that race. My second favorite basketball player of all time, next to, of course, MJ, since I'm a Chicago fan. But don't get me into the argument who the best NBA players are of all time, because I do not have LeBron in the top two. So I don't. I like LeBron. I think he's amazing, but he is three behind Michael and Kobe, at least for me. Anyway, it's a whole other argument. People either just, thumbs up in the down below the video player, or people just clicked off the video. But either way, I respect people's opinion. All right, here we go, Pete. The Gotham, and wow, what a fantastic race this is. This race is a complete war. Let's go and show it. 50 points to the winner, 25 for second, 15 for third, etc. in the Kentucky Derby. Pete, the winner of this race is going to the Derby. I mean, as long as he's healthy. And the second place finisher has a great shot to get in the Derby,
Hmm.
might go to the Derby if that particular horse already has some points. If that horse doesn't have points, they're right on the borderline of getting into the Derby. So this is a huge race. I don't like the fact it's a mile. That's a whole other conversation for another day. I think these 50-point preps should be two-turn dirt races. Anyway, maybe that'll be in the rant later on with
Yeah,
on Paul Harron after his rant that he had, which was awesome again on our Gulfstream show. Let's get to it, Pete. Here we go. The Gotham. This is a monster field of 13. It's $300,000. Of course, it's for the 3-year-old boys. 1 mile. Moyline favorite is the number 10. Just a touch. Cox and Drew. Cox has 4 in this race, Pete. If it holds
yeah,
together, this just a touch ran extremely well in the slot. By the way, breaking his main at the fairgrounds, going 6 furlongs. Let's see what we're gonna do here to close out the late pick 5. And Pete, we are going with the same 3, but in different order. We're using the 3, 8, and the 10. I'm going 3, 8, 10. You're going to go 10, 8, 3. And the common theme, I know Pete's not going to like it, but hey, listen, we got to say it. You're finding the favorite, Pete. So that means your handicapping is sharp, because you're going with the logical choice, even though I'm sure you don't always believe the logical horse is going to win. Just a touch, 5-2 for me, way too low for a win bet. That being said, he will be on my A line. Brad Cox thinks very highly with him. Tough spot, though, stretching out in a 13 horse field, going to a track you've never been to. That does show confidence, though.
yeah. No, agree. But this another one. This is one of those favorites where you feel like you should try and beat coming from the 10 hole off just one race, a maiden breaker. But it was a pretty good race. I guess the only question would be, again, so many of these preps, as I handicap all the different prep races every week, or even when I was doing sort of the top 10 that I do for our website. If anybody wants to check it out, there's an Oaks and the Derby top 10 on our website. So many of the preps, or so many of the races, whether they were preps or not, the races of the horses coming into these preps have been on off tracks. So it's just hard to
Yeah.
gauge whether the off track is moving them forward, if it moved the rest of the field down. It's just so hard to gauge that. So with this one, though, it was pretty impressive. Time form was aligned too. Time form even liked it a little bit better. So you like to see that. It's Cox and Giroux I had 33% win, 69% in the money, and 3-year-old male graded stakes dirt routes. But the one thing I didn't love going forward, I don't love this horse from a breeding standpoint, which is funny looking at their Justify out of a Tappet mare. I didn't love the horse maybe going long, but I think because this race is only a mile, I think this is where he could be at his best. So I just think he's going to be good. He's strong. He's got really good connections, and I think this distance is really going to suit him. So he's really just hard to leave off the ticket, and that's all I'll land with.
Timeform US had a fast pace with him on the lead. How do you feel about those to facts according to time form.
I,
US.
I didn't think he would be on the lead, but again, time form is because to me, I don't see another way for a horse like El Grande O to win except for being on the lead. So
Mhm.
to me, I thought El Grande O would maybe get to the lead from the 10 hole. You're going to really have to push this horse, but again, it is that long, it's a one turn, so it's the long straight, so you don't really have to push to clear. You're not trying to beat the turn like you would in a two-turn
Yeah.
race. But so I could see just a touch being more. Giroux could be a little bit more patient, can sit outside, stalk a bit. If nobody wants it, I feel like he can take it, but I don't think he has to have it. And I like being in that position better than having a need the lead type.
Yeah, he's a really interesting horse, Qatar Racing. You know what, Pete? This is the kind of horse that we don't know what he's going to be, but if distance doesn't work out, this could be a serious like Woody Stevens,
Oh yeah,
Pat Day Mile, I almost said King's Bishop, Jerkins kind of horse. And
yeah,
it's funny, the Jerkins and the Woody Stevens are both being run at Saratoga this year, by the way, which is sort of
true.
funny to think about. But
Yeah,
I think this is a really nice horse. Whether
no, I agree.
he'll win on Saturday is a whole other question. I would have been higher, Pete. I just think it's a tough spot for him. But if you want to ask me who's the most talented horse in the race, it could be this one. Now, a horse that I actually have some inside intel on, and I saw in person when I saw our boy Sierra Leone down at Payson. I stopped by the Clement barn when I was there over the winter and saw Deterministic. I did not say hello to him. I was a certain distance away, which is probably good for the Clement barn. But I'll tell you what, Pete, this horse ran big at Saratoga, and I'm not going to show the replay, but he broke slow in his main breaker. I understand that was August last year. There was buzz on this horse from the beginning. He went off at 7-2 into a pretty good field, broke slow, and made a really nice sustained run with a better than look finish with a 101 time form and an 81 buyer, which fits the time form. And as far as I know, there weren't really any issues. They just wanted to give him some time to develop. And the Clements are patient.
Well, he was
He's
real
been
green in
working.
that debut too, so maybe he just needed a little bit
Yeah,
more seasoning. Sorry to cut you off there, but
no,
if you watch that race, and again, we don't need to show, but if you watch it, anybody go back, you could see maybe he needed a little. They were like, you know what, let's take him back to the track a little bit and figure some stuff out.
yeah, I mean, he was a little green. He had a little minor issues, but look, I know for a fact the Clement barn has been very high in this horse. He cost 625,000 at Keeneland September. Since last winter, Pete, I've heard from the Clements that they thought this was their Derby horse, and they've got some really nice 3-year-old dirt horses, by the way, girls and boys in the Clement barn. You got to look out for that. So they've already seen. Like Otello, if you know that horse, of course, it
Mhm.
goes. They've got nice horses. Deterministic, they think, is their best one. He's also been working with Pandagate. Pandagate, of course, just won last week for Adelphi Racing and a few other people, and for the Clements, and he outworked Pandagate in his last one or two works. So, if you go off of that form, I think this horse is a major player. I believe he is going to come from a little further back. It might work well. The slop, who knows? But he's got a 475 Tomlinson, Pete. So if it is wet, you think he's going to handle that? Again, just like the 10, there's a lot of question marks. Series off a long layoff, blah, blah, blah. You could say this is a starting point, but this is an aggressive starting point, right? They could have run this horse in N1X speed, and boom, they're just going right to a stake here. So I do like Deterministic. I also will say I do have a small future bet on him as a backup to our boy Sierra, along with Forever Young. So Deterministic and Forever Young are small future bet wagers for me, Pete. So I'm hoping this horse selfishly does run well.
Yeah, looks good.
I want to mention the 8 Bergen. I was tied between the 8 and the 10, Pete, on who to put second. And I decided to go with Bergen for 2 reasons. One is he's already run a mile and he's got, and number 2, he's got recency. So he's already proven at the mile. He ran well at Churchill going a mile in the I guess technically that would be the winter. I got to think about that when the changes uh, at the beginning of the winter. And then he ran very well in the Winkfield. Now it was a very small field, Pete. He sat outside, he blew by, but he did it really well. And I love this local prep. If I didn't have small bias with the Deterministic, I will admit, I probably would have had Bergen on top. I have no negatives on this horse. He doesn't need the lead. He's versatile. It's another Cox. It's Franco. Maybe the 10 is more talented, but I like the recency. This horse is spendthrift, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'll let you talk about this horse. You have this horse second, and then we'll show our pick 5 tickets.
Yeah, no, everything you said. I really like the replay of that last race. But
Let's watch
again,
it.
yeah, throw it on at least down the stretch. I just
He's
thought
the
he was
5. We'll take it mid-stretch here. Or middle of the race, sort of. Eventually. I fast forward too much, Pete.
That's all right. So I'll talk a little bit. So the only thing, again, you
There
could
he is.
see him there.
Spendthrift.
Yep, sitting in fourth. I thought he was pretty professional for the most part.
Mhm.
I thought I like he was, he was stuck on the outside and he did it kind of cleanly. Again, the only question, and he's relatively straight down the lane, which is always a plus. Sometimes don't get that, especially with the younger horses on his first off track. The only thing is, from you look at the Tomlinson 436 again. Was this a race where he really just ate up the track too, and that's why he looked so impressive? Who knows? But I just thought he really looked good. I like the way he strides out. I kind of just liked
Yeah.
everything about that horse.
Doesn't it
Just
feel
on
like
visually,
he was just starting to warm up at that point? Like,
it
that
did.
was
It
my
did.
vibe.
Which is funny because he's won his 2 sprints. He lost the only time going a mile. But again, that was his second race, and he was way back, so didn't break well. Was sort of
Yeah.
a little further back than I assumed they would want from this horse. But everything else, the damn side, like you said, looks a little sprinty to me. But again, we're only going a mile here. If this was a mile and an eighth, maybe there'd be a little bit more question. But I do like I do like him at this distance, and I think he's going to be pretty tough, especially at the 9-2 price.
I'm just scrolling through the field. Cox has Lightline, who he's sort of admitted. If you read between the lines, he thinks this horse is not quite as good as the others, but he's throwing in there. Slider,
Slider,
is
yep,
coming from the West Coast, Pete. This is
yep.
a horse that could really mess up the number 10 just a touch. Or I think Slider is one that could really force a very fast pace because Lascano's going to have to go from the outside. He is fast. I mean, that speakeasy when 21 and change 44. I don't love him in this spot. I think there's too much speed. I'm not sure about the distance. And there's Clement's got another one with Capital Idea, who I don't think is out of it completely. But Slider is sort of the horse, Pete, that could really affect the pace situation in this race.
Yeah, I actually had 5 sort of A-line horses that I thought could win this race, and Slider was sort of my little wild card one of those, sort of the last one out of those. But again, the west to east is a little bit weird sometimes. You never know. Sadler doesn't do it a ton.
Yeah.
But you look at the last race, was on the lead against, really good 7 furlong sprint horses. Muth and Pilot
Yeah.
Commander are really good horses. So there's no knock losing there. So I don't look at that and say, oh, he went to 7 furlongs and he couldn't hold the lead. He didn't hold the lead because the other 2 horses are better than them. They're better than the horses in this race for the most part. Especially if we were going, say, 7. And he lost the Shards in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, so
Yes, he did.
always a plus. Again, I don't think he wants to go longer, but again, we're only going a mile here, so I just wasn't sure, and he just seemed like a wild card to me. And look at those last 2 works. You took it off, but he worked 2
Oh,
back,
yeah.
59
Yeah.
and 2, second out of 123. That's what we were talking about. Like, yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
second out of 10; it was second out of 123, and then a 59 flat first. Again, it's at Santa Anita. It's maybe a little faster and this, but he still outworked other good horses that I assume were working that day. So he could just be coming in sharp. He picks up Lescano, who's good here. So he's not like bringing a jockey not as familiar with the track. So I think there's some stuff to like here in this horse.
No doubt. He's West Coast speed. I want to see it on the East Coast
You want to see it though, yeah. You want
against
to see
other
it.
I don't know if I should say better horses, but against other horses. So he
Yeah.
is very interesting. I'm using him as a C as in cat right now. I might move him up depending on how the track plays. That's one of those situations where I got to watch the early races for sure.
Yeah.
Let's get to our pick 5, Pete. Here's your pick 5 ticket on the bottom of the screen. Let's read it off for our audio listeners. And by the way, look below the video player, everyone, for information about our Power Picks tip sheet, about our merch store, which is open until Sunday, March 3rd. Please check that out. And a lot of other there. He's got the quarter zip on. So please look below the video player and our website and a lot of other things as well. Pete is going in the pick 5 on Saturday, Gotham Day in New York, starting in race 6. Pete is going 4-5-9 with 6, with 1-4-6-8, with 3-5-8, with 3-7-8, 10, 12, $90.
Yeah, first leg I went sort of chalky now that I'm looking at it, but they were, or I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong race. First leg I went with the chalk, but I also have, a couple Vespucci if we can get that one home. I think we both like that horse a little bit. If we can get that one home early. Second
Got to
leg,
use
I
that
just
horse on your pick five, otherwise your Italian brothers are never going to
I
like you.
know you got to do that, and plus I didn't use Sicilian Princess in this current one, but I
Ooh,
went with Joe.
oh,
I know. You can't use every one of them. I went with Jody's Pride. I mean, again, this is one where you can't go too deep if you're using a 4 to 5. So you either single or you try and beat. And I really like this horse, so I'm going to single. The next one we talked about is sort of a little wide open. Again, a little chalky, but hey, Coastal Mission. We can get the
yep.
outsider home. That would be great. Then nothing exciting in the fourth leg, and then I went deep. I just think the Gotham is sort of wide open, and I don't really love anyone, especially if just a touch that outside post, and you don't know what he's going to do, and he's still young. If that gets to him, I think it's sort of wide open. I put El Grande O in there as a horse that if he can get to the lead, you never know what can happen.
Nope.
And I put Slider in, like we talked about. And
Yeah.
again, I have Deterministic, the horse that you like, which I really like that horse as well.
Think of P. You got closers and you got
You
horses
got
that'll be up front.
all layers, right? Yeah, all three
You
layers
got to try
covered.
to do that
Yeah.
in these races if you can afford it, because sometimes the pay situation can be tricky. Here's my pick five ticket. I'm spending the maximum $100. I'm going 2, 4, 5, 8, 9. I'm going to single a 6 also, Pete, with 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, with 2, 3, 6, 8, with 3, 8. So I'm going a lot lighter than you are in the Gotham. Who knows if it's going to work out? I thought the first allowance race is very difficult. I'm going to go ahead and single the 6 in the second leg, Jody's Pride. I'm using others as C as in cat horses underneath just in case. I'm going to go deep in the Tom Fool again. I'm sorry, in the Stymie, right? In the Stymie,
Yeah, the third
I'm
leg.
going to
Yeah.
go deep again. I'm going to go 4 deep in the Tom Fool. I don't have Rodney in there. I might be making a mistake, but I just feel like he's a need the lead type, and there's a lot of other speed in there. And so I'm going with I think is the better speed, and then my closer 24 Mamba, who would be my price of the sequence. And then I'm just going to hope to survive with 3-8. I got Deterministic, who I think is a serious horse who's going to be closing in theory. And then the 8 Bergen, who I think will be more mid pack, but is very honest and has recency. And I could very easily lose that race with the 3 and the 8, Pete. But I feel like I want to spread early in the sequence and just take my chances late. Final thoughts, Pete, as we wrap up, which should be a lot of fun. Gotham Day, fantastic late pick 5 with 4 stakes. Final thoughts, Pete.
Yeah, it's a good card. It's pretty good fields. Again, there's some favorites that if they come in, it could get chalky, like the way my picks were going, unfortunately. But I think it's definitely a playable sequence because there are a couple of those races, especially if you close it out in the Gotham and you can beat a couple of those favorites. I think you can get this to pay. So anytime you can see that, it's worth a shot.
Absolutely. Again, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell on the upper right hand corner. We really appreciate all of your support. For my good friend and co host, Pete Visco, this has been Howard Kravitz, episode 337 of Picks and Ponies. Check out episode 336, where we went into detail of the Gulfstream Park Fountain of Youth Day as well. But for now, crush your bets in New York on Saturday. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.